San Carlos Planning Commission meeting to order. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Present.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Present.
Commissioner Bradley?
Present.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Present.
Chair Bergman?
Present. All right, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Public comment is limited to items not on the agenda. The Commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act. However, the Commission's general policy is to refer items to staff for attention or have a matter placed on a future Commission agenda for a more comprehensive action or report. Is there anyone here that wants to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? No? All right, seeing none. All right, I'd like to move on to the next. Do I need to close public comment? No, okay. All right, approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes?
I do. The minutes from July 18th, my only comment really was that I felt like in our discussion about the wireless telecommunications facility, we had talked quite a bit about it being particularly unattractive even by cell phone tower standards, and that we were really concerned about Cal Water's landscaping versus how visible it is now. And I don't know that that was really encapsulated in the minutes, so I just wanted to make sure that somehow is. And that's it.
Yes, and through the Chair, if that's the pleasure of the Commission, staff can certainly modify the minutes to reflect that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. That was a big issue. Anything else?
Not on those minutes. Move approval of the July 25th special meeting minutes with the change requested.
Oh, it was actually the July 18th minutes that I was referring to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wasn't at July 25th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. Well, actually, I have a change to 18th as well, which is that I'm down as saying the same thing twice on page 2. And although I have been accused of being fairly repetitive, I don't usually say the exact same thing twice. So, well, I do sometimes, but I don't think I did on July 18th. So I guess you can just strike
There's
one of
tape
those
of this
on page 2.
Okay.
And so with that change and the change requested by Angela, I move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes.
And for the record, I want to note that both of these minutes have telecommunications in them, which is why I made that mistake, and it's
okay, David.
Yet
It's
again
okay,
tonight. And I'm guessing that Jill Lewis is going to be required to present it because for some reason, anyway.
Okay, did we approve just the one, or we still have to?
No, we still have to approve the other one. Does anyone, if anyone has, doesn't anyone have changes to July 25th?
No changes.
Move approval to July 25th.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Abstain.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Abstain.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, is that it for the minutes? We only had 2. I thought we were supposed to have, we only had 2 to go through?
I only had 2 in my.
Okay.
I only had 2.
All right, the next item on the agenda is down as the affordable housing presentation. However, there's people who've expressed interest in moving that to the after we do our regular business. So I think we will go ahead and do that. Do we have to make a motion, or do we just move into the public hearing?
You can make a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we move the presentation to the end of the general business to public hearing.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, moving on to the public hearing. The procedure for the public hearing. Staff will present a report on the history, physical features, etc. on the application, followed with the staff's recommendations. The applicant will make a presentation. Therefore, interested members of the community may speak on the proposal. When all interested parties have had an opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendation. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this notice, the public notice, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Speakers should fill out a speaker form found by the door and hand it to the recording secretary prior to addressing the commission. The speaker should come up to the microphone to speak since the meeting is being recorded. This will assist the staff in preparing minutes. The first item on the agenda is Burton Park at 1001 Chestnut Streets, APN 051-321-190 and 051-301-010. Request for consideration of a conditional use permit amendment for a proposed modification of an existing wireless telecommunications facility to increase the number of antennas on existing light standard from 6 to 9, 3 net new antennas, and associated improvements. And does the staff have some presentation?
Staff does. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jill Lewis, and I'll present to you the request for consideration of a conditional use permit amendment to increase the number of T-Mobile antennas from 6 to 9 at Burton Park. The existing light standard is located within Burton Park and owned by the City of San Carlos. The light pole is located on the edge of the baseball field near the parking lot for the youth center. The zoning for the site is PK Park, and the general land use designation is Park. The area surrounding the park is zoned RS6 and is made up of single-family residences. So to give you some history, in 2002, T-Mobile received approval to attach 2 antennas to the light pole. In 2005, T-Mobile received approval to attach 1 additional antenna to the light pole. In 2013, T-Mobile received approval to remove the 3 existing antennas and replace with 6 new antennas. And the proposal before you tonight is T-Mobile would add 3 new 4-foot-tall antennas for a total of 9 on the light pole. I want to point out to you a typo in my staff report on page 3. It should reference that the new antennas are 4 feet tall, not 8 feet tall. The height of the existing and new antennas is 60 feet 9 inches above grade. 3 new remote radio units will also be added, as will 1 new ring mount to provide structural support for the new antennas. There's also a cabinet swap out within the existing shelter. The RF study shows full compliance with FCC regulations for both carriers. AT&T is the other carrier located on the pole. And signage will be posted at 35 feet above grade to inform workers of the exposure levels. In 2014, the FCC issued a report and order stating that wireless facilities that meet relevant criteria shall be granted by the approval body. So in this case, 20 feet would be the greater of the 2 measurements, which you see bolded in front of you, since the monopole is, or excuse me, the light standard is not increasing in width. So these are the existing versus proposed photo simulations. The facility, including the existing light pole and antennas, is pre-existing. T-Mobile is co-locating with its own existing antennas. The 3 new antennas do not project out any more than the existing. While the installation will be readily visible, it is already visible from public view. The light standard is 71 feet tall with 2 carriers' antennas already installed. The location of the new antennas is the least visibly obtrusive alternative. So staff received no correspondence from property owners within a 300-foot radius, written or otherwise. I'm available for any questions you have for staff, and the applicant is also available should you have questions for her.
Any questions for staff?
I do.
Please go ahead.
Can I assume that the antennas approved in 2002, 2005, and 2013 have all been in compliance with the acoustical and RF emission standards?
Yes.
Okay. And then have there been any known problems or complaints from the public?
No, none that I've heard of.
And then I think my second question might be for the applicant. So thank you.
The applicant here, you want to come up, please? Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, if you have your own presentation.
Do you have something you want to present?
No, my name is Yin Barkatemi. I'm here on behalf of T-Mobile.
Okay.
So I have a question. We hear a lot of co-located cell phone tower applications, and I'm curious about different ways to screen the actual antennas, and I'm wondering, for example, I've seen poles painted green, but I'm wondering if the actual equipment, the actual antenna, can be painted green, or would that interfere somehow with its usefulness as a...
No, that's definitely doable. Antennas can be painted
Okay.
any desirable color, so.
Great. And then I guess my question would be back to staff. Maybe this is a big picture issue, and maybe it's not specific to this since it's an existing pole, but is it really that difficult to ask that we have these painted green, particularly if they're located by trees and it would blend better?
The Commission can certainly ask the applicant, but because this is a co-located facility, it makes it more difficult to require that as a condition, but you can certainly have the discussion, and it could be that T-Mobile, if it's relatively easy for them to do, and if they want to be a good neighbor, maybe they might decide to do that.
I am asking that these be painted green, please.
That's something that we can do and probably condition in, if that's something that is
That would be lovely.
how it would be. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all I had.
All right. Anyone else? No? All right, thank you very much. You can sit down.
No problem.
Is there anyone from the public that wants to speak on this issue? Please come up.
Good evening. My name is Arpi Kalfayan, and I have been living at 1513 Britton Avenue, near Burton Park. Will this be only at Burton Park? Because a few months ago, they put a pole without my knowledge in front of my front yard, and I was very upset because nobody had told me that there was going to be a pole, so I called City Hall, and then T-Mobile came or Verizon, I don't know, whoever came and took it out. So I think I would appreciate if somebody will let me know if anything is going to be put on my property.
You should be notified. I'm surprised that happened. I'm sure that wasn't approved through the city the city would have notified you. Yeah, I don't know. Lisa, definitely they would be notified if there's something like that was supposed to happen.
They should be, and I'm not quite sure about the structure that you're referring to, but for this particular application, it's a pre-existing light pole that already exists within the park, and we could even pull up some maps to kind of show you where it's located. I do know that some of the cabling equipment associated with AT&T or wireless, sometimes those types of facilities are put along the sidewalk within the right-of-way, and those are overseen by the city's Public Works Division. So maybe if it's okay with you, I can get your name and address, and I can circle back with our Public Works Division to see if they're aware of any kind of proposals for equipment to be located in the front of your home or near the front of your home. We can definitely look into that for you.
Okay. Because I have been living here for 32 years, and this is the first time that something like this happened, and I would appreciate if I would be notified and I would have a say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this issue? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
No, we're not closing it yet, are we? We have to go, for this one, then we have to do it for the next one. I'm sorry, I'm still learning this. Yes.
I move to close the public hearing on this item.
Have a second?
Second.
I'd have a roll call.
Commissioner Harper-Pedersen?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
And Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, any discussion? None. Okay, I entertain a motion to approve.
I'm sorry, I take that back. Since T-Mobile said we can condition it as a condition of approval, I would like to add that
Go for it.
Okay, let's add it. I guess maybe,
Condition 22.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, wait, no, these are numbered incorrectly here.
Oh, yeah, there seems to be too many 19s.
23,
Got it,
24,
okay.
25. So condition 26, is that right? 19,
So, yeah, I think it would be 26.
yeah.
Simply that we,
Can I have a formal motion?
oh, I'm just saying that as the 26th condition, that it be, that the antennas and pole be
Painted, okay.
painted green.
Do you want to make the motion and add the condition, or?
Sure, yeah. Sorry, let me just get to motion page.
I
Easier
think
for
that's
me
a
to
good
see.
idea.
Page 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, does everybody agree with that, or you are all right?
I'm fine with that, and the applicant didn't seem that was going to be an issue, so.
Through the chair, can we, and maybe through Commissioner Harper-Pedersen, can you clarify to staff exactly if it's just the equipment, the antennas and the associated equipment, or do you mean the entire pole? Because it is a city park pole, so we would want to check with Parks and Rec to make sure that they wouldn't have an objection to that if it is a pole, but I think what you're referring to is just the actual equipment
I was
on the
referring
pole.
to the equipment, but I guess maybe I was under the assumption that the pole wouldn't be an issue to paint since the city owned it. But, of course, that wouldn't be conditioned for this, but I would like to see it green.
You can add subject to review
Okay.
by the city's Park and Rec Department.
Yeah, that will be good. So that the antenna and pole be painted green subject to city review. Is everybody okay with that before I make the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I move that the Planning Commission approve T-Mobile's request for a conditional use permit amendment for installation of 3 new antennas with associated improvements at Burton Park, 1001 Chester Street, APNs 051-321-190 and 050-301-010, based on the required findings and for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and as conditioned in the conditional use permit, with the additional condition number 26 that the antennas and related equipment and the pole be painted green subject to city review.
A second?
I second it.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper-Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silberman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Next thing on the agenda is 1525 San Carlos Avenue, APN 050-123-170. Consideration of a request for an amendment to a previously approved grading and dirt hall certificate for an approved 18-unit mixed-use development. And does that have a report?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Laura Russell with the Planning Division. The request before you this evening is for an amendment to a dirt hall route for a previously approved project at 1525 San Carlos Avenue. All other aspects of the previous approval would remain unchanged. So as the Planning Commission will recall, on October 5th, 2015, you approved a new mixed-use project. It includes 18 residential units and 1 commercial unit. The entitlements at that time included design review, a transportation demand management plan, grading and dirt hall certificate, and a protected tree removal permit. And on the right-hand side is the rendering of that project. So since October 2015, the project has been going through the plan check process, and it is now very close to building permit issuance. And during that same time period, other development projects have gone through plan check and/or have gone into active construction. Of note, the project at Cherry Chestnut is now in active construction. And so during this time period, the city has had a number of active development sites, and so we've been increasing coordination between all of the different contractors and developers and between the city departments. And I believe you're also aware we've brought on the part-time project manager to help us oversee those construction sites. So as part of our what's now a more routine process, we've been doing more coordination between the different project sites. So as part of that process, we were talking very specifically about the dirt haul route that had been approved for this project. And through that communication and coordination, based on the best information that's available now, almost a year later, the applicant and staff agree that it would be best to alter the dirt haul route for trucks specifically that are arriving at the site. So these are the empty trucks that would be coming on 101, exiting at Whipple, going down El Camino, and left on San Carlos Avenue. So that part remains the same. The previously approved route had trucks turning left from San Carlos Avenue directly into the site with flaggers present for traffic control. So now staff recommends that the route be changed to what you see here on the screen and included in your staff report. So from San Carlos Avenue, they would turn left on Chestnut, which is a stoplight, and it has a dedicated left turn lane. Then they would proceed around the block on Cherry and Cedar, turn right on San Carlos Avenue, and right into the project site.
Chestnut has a dedicated left-hand turn?
It does.
Light?
Well, it's a dedicated left turn lane.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a protected turn, but it's a lane.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood, and I was like, I've driven that forever and never noticed that light because it's not there. Okay.
You're speeding right through it.
Yeah.
That is also a distinct possibility, Angela. Thanks for ratting me out.
And then the route leaving the site would remain unchanged, which is the very simple turn right out of the site, right on San Carlos Avenue, and proceed down to Britain to leave the community. So staff sent legal notice for this public hearing to all owners within 300 feet. And as you know, we also send notice to the residences on the local or collector streets that are along the dirt haul route. We received one email which was related specifically to environmental review and not to the dirt haul route, so I did not include that in your packet, and we just did explain a little bit more to that resident about the environmental review process. So the draft amended certificate is included as attachment 1 to your staff report. It shows the new text, which is shown in bold. All of the other aspects of the certificate are proposed to remain. If the Planning Commission wishes to approve the amended route, this is the motion that you would make, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well if you have any questions for him.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, Laura, just one question. Cherry and Chestnut, all the dirt hauling's done on that, the excavating for that project site, correct?
I checked with the building official today, and he said they're pretty close to done. He said he estimates that they'll be done within a month.
Okay.
So if there's overlap with this project, it would be very minimal.
Okay, good.
Was there ever any discussion of just going straight up Whipple to Alameda and then down Alameda and then down San Carlos Avenue? I mean, I know it's a little bit longer, but aren't those streets fairly narrow? That they're going, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to change it here and now, but I mean, maybe for the next project next door, I don't know what hauling route they had, but if we're going to be changing that one too, maybe ask staff to consider going to Alameda.
What we can do then is talk to the Public Works staff about analyzing that, and maybe we can include that in the analysis that we provide to you. In this particular case, there was concern about how the hauling was going to go related to the Cherry Chestnut project, and it has gone, I think, generally quite smoothly, and so there is a feeling amongst the Public Works staff that this route is appropriate for this project. The adjacent project at 1501 San Carlos doesn't have a significant amount of grading, so they don't have a grading and dirt haul permit, or they don't have a big route. They just have a couple of truck trips. It's less than the amount that comes to you for review. So it's actually through coordination with that adjacent project that these issues kind of came to light when we were coordinating those two projects together. But I take your point, and we'll talk about it with the Public Works staff in the future.
Any other questions?
You have answered my main question. Thank you.
Okay, no?
Which was it? What was it?
I was curious how the coordination had come about and how the route had actually been decided on, and you answered that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So the applicant's here. Do you want to make a statement, or you're just here for questions? Okay, you're just here for questions. If we have any questions for the applicant?
None.
Okay, does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Please come on up.
Let me guess, you live on Cherry. Yeah.
Or you can give it either one.
We'll take it. It's fine.
Somebody will take it from you.
These are your notes. Did you mean to give me the speaker slip? I could read it. I mean, your handwriting is fairly good, frankly.
My name is Nathan Babin. I live at 1555 Cherry Street. I just wanted to voice some opposition to the change in the route. Cherry Street at the 1500 block is actually fairly narrow. If you drive on it during the day, it's one car only at a time. So my wife's there with her baby, and it's already a lot of traffic back up there. If multiple cars are coming in at the same time, I'm worried about large trucks coming through there. I did have a concern about there's already a lot of large trucks going in and out of the area for the 1501 project. I hear the comment that we don't think there's going to be overlap with the hauling, but I think the route's actually a little bit different when you think about 1501 Cherry versus this. The route for 1501 Cherry comes down Chestnut and directly into the 1501 gate. What we're actually asking trucks to do here is make a full turn on Cherry and then again onto Cedar Street. And then my last point is I think there are a lot of other alternate routes that aren't as narrow on the streets, specifically the Alameda Las Pulgas route. I think there are a lot of ways to get there.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hard not to like him when he agrees with me, huh?
Anyone else from the public? No. Okay. All right, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, any discussion?
So then, I'm sorry, just one more question for staff based on public comment. So, Laura, is Public Works taking public feedback into consideration then when coming up and coordinating these dirt haul routes? Do you have any idea?
Yes, to the degree that we're receiving those comments and we collaborate with them on the routes. So when we hear this feedback from the Planning Commission and from the public, we are taking it back, and then they're analyzing that in light of the technical information that they have in front of them in regards to the traffic and the routes and the conditions of roads and things like that. So it is part of the conversation.
Okay, so they would have looked at Cherry despite its narrowness during the day and have considered that and feel that this route outweighs the cons of going down Cherry?
Yes. Okay. It was part of the conversation a year ago when we were discussing the previous route. Okay. And so that's why this recommendation is based on the best information that's available to staff now, which is additional data, additional information from a year ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just know how narrow Cherry is, that it really only will take one car at a time. There's cars parked on either side. It's very congested. I guess I'm not understanding the rationale. Can you help explain the rationale better?
In talking about it with the Public Works staff a year ago, those exact concerns came up. Right. And there was a lot of concern about how the intensity of the truck traffic would be and the amount of hauling that was taking place, since there were some larger projects in the city had seen previously in those constrained conditions. And as the construction for the Cherry Chestnut project has proceeded, and we've been able to see how we can use the kind of the project management tools that we have, the project manager out in the field to help facilitate that. I think the feeling has been that it does work when there was a concern a year ago that it may not work. And so it's based on that information that they think that it's wide enough and that they think they can work within their construction management parameters to ensure that it would be safe.
Why don't we just give staff the discretion to either let them use this route or use the David Silverman Alameda to San Carlos route, or both if they choose to?
Wouldn't you have to notice that?
I think because that's a significant difference in the route, I think, it probably would be a best practice to notice the people that would be along that route then, since our noticing requirements require us to notify people of the public hearing of the route itself, not just within 300 feet of the site.
That does raise a question, though. So say that we approve it as written, it goes through, and then they find a problem while they're doing the project. What are their, do they stop dirt haul and then renotice, or how does the staff / company doing the construction alter that?
So we'd have a couple of steps along the way. The first thing we're going to do, honestly, is look at the noticing that we did previously. A lot of times the 300-foot notice is going to pick up the significant residences along the local and collector streets, and we can be assured that those folks have been notified of the public hearing of the project and of the, inadvertently of the route, so to speak. They've been notified that it exists. If there was a significant number of people, I think, that were outside of that route, then we would have to decide whether there was some reasonable discretion or whether it would have to be renoticed. I think these are the issues that are coming up with a number of, kind of larger development projects. And I think the first one we've seen that has had to come back for this reason.
Thank you.
Can you just clarify, what was the route before the suggested route?
It was coming down San Carlos Avenue and turning left directly into the site across traffic, which without a turn lane, which would have required very intensive traffic control. So you have to stop traffic in the opposite direction in order for trucks to cross. Correct. There's also, it's right where the median ends, so it's also a very significant physical constraint instead of staging that.
God, I just really hate having to
through the chair
through the neighborhood like that. I understand the danger of crossing the median in San Carlos Avenue, but it's not good. Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, the other item that went into staff's consideration of this is the relative amount of hauling, and so it's 1,560 cubic yards, and so that's relatively small. Honestly, I was talking about it with the building official, and so that's the other reason why this was felt, to be an acceptable route.
How many truckloads is that many?
130 approximately.
130?
Yeah.
I see your concern, and I think we've all raised it in some way or another, though it does seem that the original route is worse.
Yeah,
explain it. Yeah.
I'm quite shocked that we approved that route.
Same thing.
I think we were more focused on the actual project and didn't really look at the route too closely because that's dangerous.
When's this project supposed to start? I don't know, is it worthwhile to see about the other Alameda route? How much time do we have?
We're actually very close to building permit issuance on this project. And so they would actually probably be waiting for this approval and appeal period to end and be pretty actively ready to go into construction, and certainly the developer can speak to that additionally, but we're very close to permit issuance. And so if the Planning Commission had an interest in doing that, maybe we could consider some option that we might approve this for some limited amount of time, or maybe evaluate it in some way and report back, such that we could give them an opportunity to go into construction and assess any issues that may come up.
I don't want to stop construction. I'm just not comfortable with it. If there's a possible better way of doing it, I'm just really sensitive to that block in Cherry. I don't know what other people think.
But we can certainly approve this and then ask staff to look at an alternate route and bring it back to the next meeting if they believe it's feasible.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
We could do that. We could analyze it and review it with our public works staff, and we could report back on the conditions, or we could re-notice it for a public hearing if there's, a public works opinion that route is feasible and potentially better for residents and still technically feasible.
I'm more comfortable with that than just a blanket approval without evaluating that route. I'm sure Public Works probably has a perfectly good reason for not using that route, but without knowing it, it just seems like there's a blank in the information, so, okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Sure. Reopen?
Oh, do I need to reopen the public hearing?
Or did we close
Yeah, they
it?
closed it.
So, we were in discussion, so let me, does someone make a motion to open?
I move to reopen the public hearing on this item.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay.
Sorry for making you guys go through that. I would just say it sounded like you guys were kind of going that direction early on, and if there's a way to give staff a little leeway to make decisions, we could still notice the public, but this is kind of staff-driven thing. I think it's a better route than what was there before, but probably if we put more effort into looking at all the different options, maybe we could find a different one. But the process of noticing and waiting a few weeks to get on the commission calendar and then the appeal period, would be pretty, that'd be at this point really tough for us to handle. But if there is a way that it could be managed at a staff level, I think those are the people that have the most information that probably make the best decision.
We are not preventing you from starting work. We're approving and there's no way, if they have to notice, they're basically noticing our meeting. So.
Right, I'm not, you sound like you guys were already at a decision that was in my favor, so that's great. But I was just saying, if
yes, it is.
Staff...
you can always seize from the jaws of victory if you like.
No, that's not what I'm trying to do, but...
you can fall on your sword.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay.
If you actually have another suggestion, but we can't. We have to approve the dirt haul route, so if it's going to come back, it has to come back. There's no way for us to, I don't think.
Quick question while you're up there and while you reopened it. When do you anticipate breaking ground?
Probably within a couple weeks.
Okay.
Does staff believe that we could delegate the dirt haul decision to staff in the event that, I just don't know how.
I just can't see how they'd do it unless those people were already noticed.
Yeah, I think the way that we proposed it initially was probably going to be the only way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so I guess, is there a motion to close the public hearing again?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silberman?
Yes.
And Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, any more comments, or do we agree to go back to what we were considering, which is we approve it, and then, but you will look at other routes and then give us a status on what we come up with? Is that what we agreed?
Yeah, basically we're approving the item as is, but giving direction to staff to explore an alternate route, including the one that we discussed. And if it's feasible and Public Works approves of it and it can be brought back without delaying construction, bring it on back. Okay, please.
All right, I entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission grant approval of the amended grading and dirt haul certificate associated with the previously approved 18-unit mixed-use development located at 1525 San Carlos Avenue, APN 050123170.
Your second?
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silberman?
Yes.
Chair Bergman?
Yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is going back to number 6, which is the presentation on affordable housing.
She's comfortable up there. I saw her practicing. So. She timed it too.
She's practicing standing?
Yeah, it's tough work.
Give you the clicker.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Nell Sealander, Economic Development Coordinator, and I also work on housing programs and projects for the City of San Carlos. I'm here this evening to provide you a bit of a primer on affordable housing in San Carlos. So we'll discuss a bit of terminology, housing policy related to the city's BMR ordinance, the results of that ordinance, and then also what we're working on next. So what does affordable really mean? Just to kick things off, affordable in this context really has two meanings. There's little a affordable, which refers to the amount of a household's income that is spent on housing. We like to think of little a affordable as a household spending 30% or less of their income on housing. If that household is spending 30 to 50% of their income on housing, they're really considered moderately housing cost burdened. And if they're spending greater than 50% of their household income on housing, they're severely housing cost burdened. Big A affordable refers to housing that's affordable, little a affordable, to a specific range of households. Generally, those are households making 120% of the area median income or less. And then finally, below market rate. What does that really mean? It's synonymous with big A affordable housing. We can use those two interchangeably. When we talk about below market rate housing, we're talking about housing affordable to households making 120% of the median income or less. So this table shows the 2016 income limits for San Mateo County, with income categories on the y-axis, household size on the x-axis, and these are the upper limit thresholds to qualify for below market rate housing targeted to the various income categories. You'll notice at the top where it says effective 5/24/16 that the area median income is $107,700 a year, and then median income is always based on a family or a household of 4. These thresholds are set by the state, but really implemented at a county level. So this is a reproduction of the document that the county puts out, but it's based on state figures. So now for a look at what below market rents mean in the context of market rate rents. First, we'll look at a 2-person household living in a 1-bedroom, and then a 4-person household living in a 3-bedroom. So we're using San Mateo rental and income data because it's a bit more reliable than just looking at San Carlos, which is a pretty small sample size, particularly for rental units. And also 60% of San Carlos households are 1- and 2-person households. So this is really relevant to what we're talking about here. Folks that could fit in a 1-bedroom. This magenta line shows the median rental list price for a 1-bedroom in San Mateo County over the last 5 years. You can see the steady increase in the price of rent over time, really peaking this year at $2,648 a month.
For a 1-bedroom?
For a 1-bedroom. And that's the median. This turquoise line here that just came up shows the amount of rent that is little a affordable to a 2-person household making the median income over the same 5 years. So that's a household that's spending 30% of their income on housing. And today that 2-person household would earn $86,000 a year and can afford just about $2,100 a month for housing. That's $500 less than 1-bedrooms generally rent for in this county. So who makes this income?
So when we're talking about 86,000, are we talking about 86,000 net?
Gross.
Or
Gross.
86,000
gross.
Okay.
Yeah, so affordability numbers are based on gross income. It's not net. So really net, it's probably more like 40-50%.
Okay.
It's just the convention that's used.
Okay.
So this household, this two-person household might be an insurance agent making $35,000 a year, an administrative assistant at a software company making $50,000 a year, or even a single-parent teacher with 6 to 7 years experience on the job and a dependent child. So that's sort of who might make up a two-person household that makes about $86,000 a year. Lastly, this blue line demonstrates what a very low-income household can afford to spend on housing, and a very low-income household is categorized as a household earning 50% of the median income for their household size. So this household right now earns $49,000 a year and can afford $1,230 a month to spend on rent, and that's less than half of what it costs to rent a one-bedroom here.
You just can't live here. That's basically what it's saying, is if you can't make it, you can't live, because I don't know of any place that only charges $1,200 for rent.
Yeah, and then there's all the sort of alternative rents, you know, renting a room somewhere or home sharing or something like that. But yes, it's pretty far out of reach.
Beginning teacher, that where they must be living, I don't know.
So now we're going to look at a four-person household in a three-bedroom rental. So 67% of San Carlos's housing stock are 2 and 3 bedrooms. So this is also really relevant to our market. And this could be a single-family home for rent that's about this size, or a multifamily apartment. So the median list price for a 3-bedroom in San Mateo County is $4,200 a month. And this increase that you see here from 2012 to 2016 is a 45% increase in the cost of a 3-bedroom. So just as a really staggering point of comparison I came across today, the median list price for a 3-bedroom in Manhattan has increased 13.5% over this same time horizon. So their rents are increasing less steeply as ours are. So the median household income in San Mateo County, or family of 4, so right now we're looking at a family of 4, are earning $107,700 a year. And that household can afford, in 2016, about $2,600 a month on housing expenses. That's $1,600 less than 3 bedrooms are renting for in this county. And then for a very low-income household of 4, earning 50% of the median income, their ability to afford rent is even further out of reach. And a 4-person, very low-income household would earn about $61,000 a year and can only comfortably afford $1,500 a month in rent. So for a quick look at home ownership, and I think this chart is particularly important for San Carlos since so many of the residential units in San Carlos are owner-occupied. It's a great community, and part of that is because of the longevity that's created by home ownership. So this graph charts the past 20 years of median sales prices of all homes in San Carlos. So it's a little bit of a blunt tool because you're lumping in condos with, a 6-bedroom home, but it gives you a sense of the scale. And then the orange line below is the maximum purchase price for the median household. So a family of 4 earning the median income. What could they afford over the same time frame? Now, we're being really generous here. The maximum purchase price we're calculating assumes using the national average interest rate for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, a 20% down payment, which is often unattainable in this region, very good credit, and little other debt. So probably not a big student loan payment on top of a housing payment. When we calculate the purchase price for a below market rate condo, we use less generous assumptions so that we're really protecting the purchase price and keeping it low enough to truly be affordable. So to put these assumptions in context, here you see in 2016 that the median household can probably only afford around $600,000 in purchase price. A moderate income 3-bedroom BMR designated condo would sell for about $460,000, so even below that for the moderate income category. But that's still about $1 million below market. So I'd like to lastly point out that when housing prices last peaked in 2007, the difference between the median home price in San Carlos and the maximum affordable purchase price for the median household was $480,000, give or take a few thousand. But today, that delta has grown to over 800,000. So there's a pretty staggering difference between what the median household can afford and what homes are selling for in San Carlos today. So now I'm going to walk you through the city's policy and what that's designed to do. So the city has had an inclusionary zoning policy or ordinance since 1991, meaning that residential developments of a certain size were required to build some level of affordable units within their projects. This policy was amended in 93, 2004, and then most recently in 2011 following the zoning code update. So we're only going to talk about 2011 because it's what we know best and it's what we're implementing now. And that's Chapter 18.16 of the Municipal Code. Oh, sorry. So currently, new residential projects and residential additions of 1,000 square feet or more are required to build or pay an impact fee or an in-lieu fee. So that's a lot of ors, but we're sort of going to walk through all of those ors right now. And single-family homes that build an accessory dwelling unit that's compliant with our second unit requirements, those are exempt from the BMR requirement. Okay, so who builds? For sale residential developments of 7 units or more must designate 10% of the units as moderate income and 5% for low income, unless the developer demonstrates that doing so would be economically infeasible. But right now, with the economy the way it is, you've noticed the projects that come before you. Most are building 1 or 2 units as required. So I will give this one caveat, which is why doesn't this apply to rental developments? And that's because of a California Court of Appeals case known as Palmer versus the City of LA. And I'm no housing attorney, so I'm not going to weigh into that. But basically, just so you know, for the sake of this conversation, in order to comply with the case law, we cannot require rental developments to build on site. The developer may choose to, but we cannot require it as we do with a condo development.
Do we require them to pay an in-lieu fee?
Yep, okay. They do pay a fee.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah. I didn't hear would you say that one more time? From the beginning, not from the very beginning, from just that last part.
Oh, so a rental development, we cannot require them to build the units on site.
To build them on site?
To build the BMR units in the same project.
Oh, okay.
So they pay the fee. Rental developers will pay the fee, whereas the for sale developers are required to build the units on site.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I've heard that fractions can often come up with this, right? If 15% of 7 or 8 or 9 units is required to be affordable, what do you do with a fractional unit? In this case, in our ordinance, if the fraction is less than 1/2, then you round down, and then there's also this partial unit fee that's applied. So with the example of 8 units, 15% of 8 is 1.2. The developer would build 1 unit and then pay this fractional fee based on the average unit size. If the fraction is greater than or equal to 1/2, then you round up and no partial unit fee is applied. So a 13-unit development would round up from 1.95 to 2 and build the 2 units.
I have a quick question for you before you go on. So, we have this 10% ordinance, but what's the need? I mean, of all the people that need housing, it's probably more than 10% of the people out there, right? How are we mapping to the real need?
So our in-lieu fee, our BMR ordinance is based off of a nexus study, which is required in order to adopt such a fee or a requirement from 2010 based on 2009 construction data. So need is growing faster to some extent than our ordinance is keeping pace with. But we've had it on the books far longer than many other communities. So we're sort of, it's a tough call, basically.
So does that, I mean, is there any updated study that's being worked on? I mean, we're working off, I mean, we saw the nexus or the difference of price points. Really, 2010 was a down market, was a recovering market. I mean, so to use that data to where we're at right now, it's an extreme difference.
It does seem to be out of alignment.
So what's being done, or is anything being done in order to kind of make those numbers a little more real?
Well, so let me get to the end where we talk about how much money we have and how we're trying to spend it, because part of this is spending the money we have, and then another part of it, we also need to spend it. And so right now we're working pretty hard on trying to spend the dollars.
We want more money, is what we're saying. So I know we have some, we want more.
And council has directed staff to research a commercial linkage fee, which would apply to commercial uses. So that's an area where there would be more money if you're looking for the answer to that question. But that's sort of a whole nother topic. Okay, so the BMR plan. Projects that have a requirement to build the units are required to submit a below market rate housing plan for review and approval by you. The BMR plan must include a number of items, but the key ones are really the location and size of the unit to make sure that they're commensurate with the market rate units, the income levels that they're pegged at, whether or not the units will be offered for sale or for rent. The developer can make that decision, and that's what determines the level of affordability. And then, if applicable, a developer could suggest an alternative means of meeting the BMR requirement. So perhaps they have another parcel adjacent that they'd like to build all of the units on. That's something that they could propose to the city for Planning Commission review and approval. And then lastly, if a developer is meeting the requirement by building the units in the development on site, they are able to request an incentive as long as those units are compliant with our requirement. So an incentive, as I just mentioned, can be any number of incentives listed in Chapter 18.17 of the Municipal Code, but the most common ones are probably the city density bonus, which allows a developer to build one additional market rate unit for every additional BMR low-income unit provided beyond the base requirement. If they're required to build one unit, that can't suffice for getting that density bonus. They've got to build another unit. There's also flexible parking standards related specifically to the BMR units constructed. And then probably most common is the flexible setback allowance. And there are specific findings in this chapter of the Municipal Code that must be met in order to grant that allowance. So who pays? The city collects in lieu fees, affordable housing, below market rate in lieu fees from developers of for sale condo projects of between 2 and 6 units, or from those developers that demonstrate that building the units on site would be financially infeasible. So it's an in lieu fee because it's in lieu of building the units on site. Then there's the impact fee, the affordable housing impact fee. And this is paid by all rental developers unless they opt into building the units. It's paid by single-family homes and residential additions of 1,000 square feet or more. So this is sort of catching everyone else. And our fee, which makes it a little bit hard to compare to other cities, is based on the average square footage or the average unit size. So if all of the units in a development are 1,000 square feet, that makes it simple. The average unit size is 1,000 square feet. And then there's also a different fee for every single size of development. So different fee for 2 units versus 20 units. So I'm going to give you a couple examples just so you can see the magnitude of the fee. So a 9-unit multifamily rental project, for example, is 530 Walnut, which was recently approved, And the average square footage of a unit in this proposed building is 939 square feet. And the cumulative impact fee for a 9-unit project is $243.42. That $243.42. So those two numbers multiplied by each other, and their total fee is about $230,000, just a bit under. And this is something that's calculated just before building permit issuance and paid at that point. And that's because the average unit size can fluctuate a tiny bit as the design gets more refined. So for a 2-unit mixed-use project, 1312 Laurel Street, the average square footage of the residential units is 1,667 square feet. The impact fee for a 2-unit project is $15.83 an average square foot. So that's an impact fee of about $26,000. And then for a new single-family home, this is 171 Coronado, which was approved last summer, I believe, and at just over 4,000 square feet.
I recognize that.
Yeah. This was a difficult site, right? And we wanted to give you a brand-new project on a vacant lot.
A driveway.
Yeah.
Is this the turnaround?
So if there was already a home on this site, let's say there was a 1,600 square foot home, and that was demolished and the 4,000 square foot home built in its place, you would pay the fee on the difference. Okay, but this is brand new, so you're paying it on the whole square footage, and this would be about $11,500. Okay, so the results of this...
Much actually when you think of a $4 million home.
It's, yeah, I don't have anything really to compare it to other than maybe like the sewer fee, which I think is half that or something like that. So, units built. Since 1991, since the city adopted its inclusionary zoning policy, 88 units have been built. 29 are in the pipeline, meaning they've been entitled and are either under construction or will be soon, and about 60% of those are units. So this includes the 20 units at Transit Village, or the 4 units at Cherry Chestnut, the 3 units at 777 Walnut Street. Since 2005, the city has collected $2.7 million in fees, but we're anticipating $3.5 million when Wheeler Plaza pulls its building permits. So all of a sudden, it will double that fund. So in addition to those monies, we also have housing asset funds that belonged to the redevelopment agency. So now we are obligated to spend those as well, and that's closer to $7 million. So all in, without Wheeler, we've got about a hair under $10 million in housing funds that are allocated for very specific income brackets.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? Can you break those down? I don't see the 10 million.
So $2.7 million has been collected since 2005, and these are impact fees. So this is just to, the mission behind these is to provide a range of housing to a range of incomes. The housing asset fund I didn't particularly list because it's much more limited. It's really for extremely low income and very low income households, and there's a timeline under which that must be spent or encumbered. So it's much more limited in what it can be spent on.
You mean timeline as of the time of the project, construction of the project?
Correct. It has to be
2 years or something.
Yeah,
like that.
we have to start encumbering it by 2019. So it's a more accelerated timeline. These funds are the city's, and they're a bit more flexible. So using these funds that the city has, the intention is to, and council has directed staff to consider the redevelopment of 817 Walnut Street, which is a very small multifamily building that the city owns, down where Walnut dead ends into the Bianchini's parking lot and that South Plaza parking lot that the city owns. So we're exploring that now. We're also in negotiations to purchase other property for the purposes of developing affordable housing. And then we also, on an annual basis, release a Notice of Funding Availability, a NOFA, to support San Carlos-based and then also regional programs that serve San Carlos residents for affordable housing projects and different programs. And that council just increased the NOFA amount from $100,000 annually to $150,000 annually. So that's a competitive grant that gets divvied up to various housing organizations. And that's all that I've got for you.
Just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's summarized all our questions of the last 3 years in 20 minutes, so thank you. How do you define financially feasible? Is there a definition of that?
So I haven't personally been involved with any of these, so I can't say on this project this was financially infeasible, but essentially it's demonstrating that perhaps you couldn't get the funding you needed in order to build the project, or it didn't meet your investors' requirements for profit, or some sort of...
So very laxed is what you're saying.
I wouldn't say very lax. It has to be something meaningful, saying, if required to build the units, this project would not get built. And so then you're making the decision about whether or not the project should get built. Either way, they're paying the fee. It doesn't happen often.
Let's see. What other question did I have? Anybody can jump in if they have any other questions.
My question was similar. I know it's happened at least once because it happened on the single-family housing
11.
That's going to be
Like
cutting
on San Carlos
cutting
Avenue
on
by
San Carlos.
Carmont?
Right.
I remember that, yeah.
So I'm not sure about the particulars of that. I didn't handle that review.
Yeah, and I've since had discussions with other developers that pretty much told me what developers can stomach and what they can't, and called foul on that one. So, so I think it just depends on, depends on the negotiation. But so there's, I think you said there's like what, 66 or 88 units that have been built.
88.
88 units that have been built, and then how many are in the pipeline?
29.
29. It just seems to me that we're just not even. It seems to me like there's a lot more percentage of the population that's going to need this support. And I guess personally, one thing that I know you can't do anything about it because you didn't, settle the law case, right? But I think I like it when we can have the below market rate in with the mix with the actual affordable, the market rate housing, because I think if you start putting below market rate or just clusters of lower market housing, it has I don't know if it would happen in San Carlos, but that's how neighborhoods start to sort of fall by the wayside when they don't have the income that they need coming in. Like I said, I don't know if it happens in San Carlos, but I have always not liked it when the developers pay the in lieu fee. I'd rather have the actual units, but I don't think we have a choice on that, because I'd like to see, I like it interspersed, because then the community can actually manage that, and it doesn't affect the quality of the community. But that's just my own opinion.
And I think many of us have raised that concern at one point or another, whether it was Transit Village looking at the alternate BMR plan, or in situations that you and I just referenced recently near Carmont, that the whole point of in-community affordable housing is that the residents don't feel separated, right?
Yeah, it's different.
So that's my concern as well. I have another question, I guess, about demonstrating the economic infeasibility, because I feel like when we've had the discussion, we've never been able to force the point. So the developer either gets to build them, or they get to pay the in lieu fee, and we really haven't seemed to have much say in the matter. Do we get to decide whether it's economically infeasible for them? Who decides that?
Give me 2 seconds. I just quoted this to one of my coworkers earlier today, but there is
I want to check with staff on Wheeler. Wasn't it the recommendation of the city that they pay the in lieu fee?
I couldn't tell you the specifics on that. I don't recall. I mean, I just wasn't involved in that level of detail, that level of discussion.
I think that was said at one of the public hearings, because I think we asked the question, and I guess I had a question why we would do that instead of have them actually, since those are for sale units, why we would have them do that instead of build the units as part of the development. And you can get back to me at some other time on that.
I would like to. I think it would be helpful for the commission to understand the details.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they did say it was financially infeasible to do that, so that the in lieu fee was better off for them. And I think that's how this kind of discussion on a larger scale was questioned.
Right.
So my only comments is kind of what I made earlier too, is, you know, I would gladly pay 2010 prices to anyone based off of today's prices. So the question comes up, and we've had this discussion too on parking in lieu, all these in lieu's. You know, if you're not keeping up with the metric of value, then it almost seems like the city just doesn't get what they actually need. I mean, the difference is so great right now that you know, I think it's to the city's best interest to try to update that information. And so I guess my question is that even on the table anywhere on updating the metric used to determine the in lieu fee? Because we're talking 2000. I think you said that it was 2010's numbers, correct?
So,
or even before that.
2009 construction data, 2010 Nexus data is what I have.
So I don't know of a specific plan to update the residential one, but as I mentioned, council's directed staff to look into a commercial linkage fee, which would be a completely different source of money and maybe more appropriately aligned as construction of commercial uses is what brings in more employees needing more housing. So I think there's a consideration now for, should it be all on residential, or is it sort of a broader pool of folks paying into it? So, but that's a council level discussion that's, I believe, will be happening soon.
What is actually your department plan to try to address the gap? Is there, I mean, we have what we're doing now. What are the future plans to try to close the gap better?
I mean, really, it's just using the funds that we have in order to build as many units as we can build. So the biggest constraint is acquiring property on which to build them. So we're negotiating now to try to acquire some property and then get those units built as quickly as possible with the resources that we have, because we're in a good position. There are a lot of cities that don't have financial resources to build housing right now. We have those, and in competitive tax credit financing and things like that that's available to affordable housing projects, having a local contribution really helps your chances. So we're in a good position. Now we just are working on building.
I have a question for the zoning, because I don't have the entire zoning map memorized, but some of the commercial, not commercial, but industrial properties south of El Camino, like between American down to, let's say, Whipple. I mean, that's largely industrial, but does that allow for any housing in there? I mean, where most of those businesses are? I mean,
are you asking if the zoning allows for that? Is that what you're...
So all of our industrial zoning districts do not allow housing specifically. I mean, it would be against our general plan policy. So it's a policy decision to preserve those areas as being industrial, commercial, office-oriented, sometimes with conditional use permit requirements, but no residential. Yeah,
I was just wondering, I mean, from a room standpoint, if it made sense. This is just talking out loud, like if it made sense to allow for artist lofts or some kind of type of housing on top of a business or something. I don't know, it's just because land is at such a premium. It's something I've thought about, but we don't solve it today, and I don't want to keep people late just because of that, but that's something that I've often wondered.
I just have a clarification about the commercial linkage fee that you mentioned. Is that specifically for commercial developments that are bringing employees into the area, or does that mean any development coming in? I guess I'm just curious.
So the way it's applied, I'll give you how it's applied in other cities because we don't have one now and it's just beginning to come up and really be considered. So in other communities, it's applied on a per square foot basis. So it's based on the square footage of the proposed use.
Regardless of what the proposed use is.
It's usually tied specifically to the type of use. So is it commercial office, or is it a restaurant, or is it a hotel, or is it, oftentimes nonprofits are exempt, or very small spaces. Let's say it's a 3,000 square foot space.
Got it.
That would be exempt. So it can be quite tailored to the community and sort of what the needs and the type of land uses are. So you could expect it to be different for within the commercial category, different types of commercial uses.
So a commercial linkage fee wouldn't at all include something like Transit Village that is a housing development?
It might for the commercial use.
I see. Thank you. That helps me a lot.
And just to answer the question about, who decides about the financial infeasibility. So I'll just point out that in Chapter 18.16.070, which is about alternatives, so alternatives to meeting the BMR requirement, paragraph 6 describes that sort of economic infeasibility. And then Section B of that same chapter relates to findings, and that the decision-making body for the first approval may approve, conditionally approve, or reject any alternative proposed by the builder as part of the BMR plan. So for Transit Village, I believe the first decision-making body was council, and so they provided the waiver for the reduction. They proposed an alternative, which was 10% affordable as opposed to 15% affordable. Or for Wheeler Plaza, for example, that was also handled differently.
I mean, that goes to what I'm really trying to get at is where's our authority around this to require certain things, and it sounds like there isn't much. Either the council makes the decision on economic feasibility / infeasibility of these alternative plans, or that's that.
It depends. It depends. It sounds like, and I wasn't here because I was recused, but it sounds like this body had the ability to determine feasibility for 2811. So. Did we?
And don't get me wrong, I actually think they proved the infeasibility pretty accurately. I'm just curious whether we actually made that decision.
So, I'm sorry, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, so I just wanted to confirm with now. So the way the ordinance reads is that it gives the authority to the decision-making body that's approving the project. So in the context of 2811, which is a planning commission decision, that decision would have been coupled in with the entitlements associated with that project as well. So if it comes to the planning commission, then you would have the authority, but if it otherwise goes to the council, then the decision authority is deferred to the council.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
So I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Again, to me it seems logical to we have the code, right? We have the method of determining what that in lieu fee is. We just have really old data. And to me, I understand the city council is going to be looking at the linkage to the commercial aspect of that, but we have the residential aspect of that. We just need that information updated to be closer in line with where the market is. I'm not sure what that cost is to update that information, but I would think that it would be to the city's best interest to update that information. We have a situation where the prices have risen so rapidly, yet we're still working off of data that's really, really old. If we're going to go through the cost of looking at another linkage, why don't we also go through the cost of updating what's already in the code? That's just my feeling is, and it's really prevalent with the presentation that you did, because, like you're pointing out, the gap is just so huge. And it's primarily huge, especially when it comes to the in lieu fee, because we're working off of old data. Cost of construction's gone up, marketability of those places have gone up. So to me, it would just make sense to, I think I mentioned this too, when it comes to the parking in lieu fee. We don't have an updated number for that as well. Real estate prices go up. And they have gone up dramatically. So, even if we're working off of 2013's figures or 14's figures, they're going to be much different than the ones that we're working off of. If it's just, I think the City Council is going to be seeing this presentation as well, correct? And they're probably watching me right now, and I might get a couple texts later, but... I think it'd be important to look at that. I think we've mentioned it a couple times now. As a body that looks at a lot of these applications, I think it would be, again, to the benefit of the city, and hopefully closing some of those gaps.
Can we make a formal recommendation or a written recommendation? Would it be to your committee or to City Council or to?
Can't.
We can't.
It's not agendized for that.
Right. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. This is all right. I'm sorry. Okay.
We appreciate all the comments received here, and certainly, we can take that back, within our department and talk through that amongst ourselves as colleagues and share it with the director as well.
I just make an observation that although Nell did a very nice job making this simple, this is not a simple issue. It's very, very complicated. I'm not talking about the regional housing crisis. That's a complicated problem as well, and we're not going to build enough houses in San Carlos to fix the regional housing crisis, although we should certainly do our part. But I would expect that staff would be in the best position of determining whether it makes sense to do an updated fee study. And, if staff believes that it would be in the city's best interest, obviously I would support that. But I know that the way these fees are calculated are very complicated. So, but it was a very nice presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Nell. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nell. And as troubling as this sounds, the last 4 days until yesterday, I was working with homeless veterans at the East Bay Stand Down in Pleasanton at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. And their situation is so much worse than we have here, where they have, under $10,000 of welfare money to deal with. They're paying $800 a month for a single room occupancy place at the expense of food to eat. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one final question. The flexible setback allowance and the incentives, I'm curious if this applies to individual homeowners that, for example, are looking at building a second dwelling unit, because I do see that the fee applies or doesn't apply if they build, say, a secondary dwelling unit. Do they also get flexible setback standards to build that secondary dwelling unit?
No, they don't. Those incentives are typically given when you're going above and beyond the base requirement. And when someone decides and has the opportunity to construct a second unit on site, there are specific setback requirements for that second unit. So it would kind of be inconsistent to allow that, given that there are specific setbacks designed to really kind of ensure that there's privacy and livability for that second unit, as they're typically, provided either on the side or in the rear portion of the lot. That wouldn't apply for in the single-family context.
Okay. Even if that homeowner went above and beyond and rented the secondary dwelling unit to a lower-income person.
It's just that it's exempt. So even if they chose to do that, there wouldn't be. We don't have an incentive for them to rent it out at the, I guess, below market rate.
Yeah, I mean, they could always propose something. Yeah. There's not something, because it's exempt, it's not specifically outlined in there.
No, I was legitimately just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions for Nell?
Thank you, Nell.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you, Nell. That was excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to reports, correspondence, and general information. A report on recent city council elections.
I would like to report to the Planning Commission that at the last city council meeting, the council did agree with staff's recommendation to appoint 2 members from the council to serve as an ad hoc development standards subcommittee for construction of new single-family homes. And so Council Member Mark Olbert and Council Member Ron Collins will serve in those capacities for the life of the project. And our next step is to actually meet with them and start talking about the process that will unfold. And as I mentioned before, we are looking to have our first study session on lot splits with the Planning Commission on October 17th. So we're right now in the very stages of doing our public outreach and civic engagement, rolling that plan out. We're about to send out a very large mass mailing to every property owner who has a lot size of 10,000 square feet or more, and also property owners that are within 300 feet of those 10,000 square foot lots. And we are encouraging the community who has expressed an interest in this to follow us on our website. The city has a Facebook page, a Twitter feed. We're also on Nextdoor. We've developed a website specifically for this effort, and we're taking emails. We're creating an email distribution list, but we also have incorporated a new topic under the city's e-notify system, so people can sign up under an e-notify and select single-family lot splits, and they will receive a notification every time we have a meeting on this topic, whether it's a study session, public hearing, and all the way through city council. Because it's very, as you can imagine, expensive and a large effort to do the mass mailing. So we're going to do it once and then, make it very clear on the notice that we want people to sign up and follow the process. So it's the best way that they can stay involved. So if anybody asks, feel free to let them know that's the plan. But again, we'll have that discussion on the 17th. No action. It's just the first in a series of discussion. And as I mentioned before, I think it was Vice Chair Silverman, who asked, well, if the commission is ready to make a recommendation, can we do that? And that certainly, when the commission is ready, we can move forward with that. And that's all I have for this evening. Is there anything else? Okay.
Planning Commission comments or reports?
I just have one. Actually, not related to what you just said on noticing, but particularly thinking about the project we just heard. Previous to that, the dirt hall certification and grading at 1525. I feel like the larger radius and noticing requirements would have helped to give staff more leeway in that case. It would have helped to give builders more leeway in that case. And the public at large has been asking us to increase that radius. And planning commissioners have also asked. So I'm wondering, it seems like a win-win-win-win to increase the radius. I understand there are costs to it, but I still haven't seen an assessment of what those cost differences would be. And I'm wondering what we need to do to make this happen. Is it something we need to have a separate agenda item about so that we can enlarge the radius, or are we going to wrap this into the development design standards update?
We're going to be looking at that as, we've heard the commission make this comment before about increasing the radius, whether that's this commission, the planning commission, or whether it's the RDRC. As we know, the planning commission has 300 feet requirement, and for projects going to RDRC, it's 150 feet. So we're going to take a look at that as we look, I guess, a little bit more comprehensively at the development standards, and maybe through that process, we want to modify some of the design review process and procedures, and noticing certainly could be one of those. But in the spirit of really communicating to the public what is happening amongst all the various projects that have started construction and will soon start construction, we've created a new web page, and I don't know if we shared that with the Planning Commission actually, but what I can do is I can send you a link as information. But we are working hard and with our construction coordinator to respond to people's questions about construction activity, grading times, construction times, and so forth. So we're trying to put as much of that information as we can on this new construction updates web page that we've created because of all the development happening throughout the community. So we will continue to do that, and we'll pay close attention and make sure that we're giving the best information we can as it changes. But as far as the actual noticing requirements, we're still following the procedures that are outlined in our code. Certainly if anyone would like to, they are welcome to say, I want to be noticed, and they can be added to a certain list. I think we've had a few members of the community who said, anything that happens around, within the vicinity of where I live, can you please send me a notification? So we do that to at least a few residents who have asked us to. So if somebody...
I'm fine if it's coming up as a part of a comprehensive review. I just don't want it to get lost, I guess, in the many, many, many other concerns that I know the public has about design standards criteria.
Yeah, we have it on the list.
Thank you.
Correspondence?
None this evening.
Okay. Planning staff comments, reports, and updates on current projects?
None for this evening.
Okay.
Are they really going to start demolishing for Wheeler Plaza next month?
I heard that it's January.
Oh, I thought I read that it was next month, and I thought that was really interesting.
No, it's been the target has moved, obviously, but the last I heard was really the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And we can,
No need to do anything. It's fine. I'm here. It's easy to ask questions. I don't want to create work for you.
All right. Nothing else? Meeting adjourned.
Nice to see you again, Don. See you next time.
All right, neighbor.